Sitting at the crossroads of U.S. Highways 80 and 69 in southwestern Wood County rests the town of Mineola, Texas. Now, before the railroad made their mark on the town, the area was known as, Sodom. Now, there's not a lot of people who lived in the area, and no one really knows exactly how it got that name. But the town got its government organized in 1873. The post office followed 2 years later, and the town's oldest newspaper, the Mineola Monitor, began its run in 1876. Within a few years, the population of the town had grown to about 2,000 and boasted multiple schools, hotels, and churches. During the community's first 60 years, local farm produce included cotton, livestock, fruit, and berries. The year 1880 brought a big setback to Mineola as it lost 18 buildings as the result of a large fire. But the town came back and soon opened the Mineola Chair Factory in 1886, which later became a crate and basket factory in 1900 and remained in business until 1952. Nearby Lake Holbrook was completed in 1960 and has attracted residents and visitors to the area ever since. The population of Mineola in 1980 was 4,346, which grew to a little over 4,500 in 2000. Then, by the year 2020, the population stood at 4,764. Welcome to Mineola, Texas. The town's real beginning can be credited as a result of the introduction of the railroads coming into the area. It was in 1873 when the race was on between the Texas and Pacific Railway coming in from Longview from the east and the Houston Great Northern Railroad coming in from Troop from the south. The winner you'd see would get control of Mineola's railroad facilities. Now, history states that Houston and Great Northern arrived a mere 15 minutes before the Texas and Pacific and was declared the winner. Now, there was some type of discrepancy as to which railroad actually got there first. In fact, the matter was not officially settled until 1921. Mineola truly became a hub of railroad activity when in 1881 a third railroad came through town, the Missouri, Kansas, and Texas Railroad, also known as the Katy, as it built a line from Tyler to Greenville. To this day, you can still see some of the Katy tracks running through the Iron Horse Square Park that is right next to the train depot and runs along the south side of the current Union Pacific tracks. In the late 1800s and into the mid-1900s, black baseball teams played separately from white teams. Mineola, even with its small population, had both. The Mineola Black Spiders consisted of African-American men who lived in town. They played at Epperson Park. Now in 1920, Vernon Klingman moved to Mineola and got involved working with the team. He added to the roster by allowing non-residents to play for the team, and at that time he changed the name to the Texas Black Spiders. In 1932, the team left Mineola and became a barnstorming team playing around the Midwest under the name of the Mason City Black Bats. Now, some members of the team would eventually return to Texas, and the Black Spiders were known as one of the fastest teams in the South, and they were a very strong team as well. In 1936, they held a record of 34-1. By 1938, the team was gone and is now an almost forgotten part of Mineola history, although a very important part. The Black Spiders, the team that brought baseball success to Mineola, Texas. Now, as we have found with several other small towns in Texas, the current name of most of these little towns have had their names changed as a result of the railroads coming into their area. And Mineola is no different. However, there are a couple of different stories as to how Mineola became the chosen name. One version has the secretary of the International and Great Northern Railroad naming it after his boyhood home in Mineola, New York. The other story tells the tale of Major Ira H. Evans, who laid out the town site, named it for his daughter Ola and her friend Minnie Patton. But the story that holds the most truth comes from when the town of Quitman voted not to have the railroad come through their town. Major Rusk opted to build his own town 10 miles to the south. He said he was going to call the town after his good friend's daughter Minna and his own daughter Ola, and they spelled it Mineola. But the post office officials in Washington assigning the name misspelled it, and they called it Mineola. Sitting at the northern half of downtown on Johnson Street is the historic Select Theater. The theater opened in 1920 by Mrs. Mattie Hooks. She said she wanted to give the people in Mineola a chance to have a one-of-a-kind movie experience, and she chose the name Select after the Select movie picture franchise, and the name has stuck for over 100 years. The Select was a unique theater at the time, boasting an ice cream parlor and a confectionery shop until about the year 1948. It was at that time the parlor and candy shop were removed and the big neon tower, brightly lit marquee, and concession stand were added. Now this was part of a huge renovation that also added a balcony, a cry room, and something very special for the people of Mineola enjoying a Saturday matinee, chilled air. Two employees of the theater who had worked there for many years bought the Select in the 1960s. James Deere and Truman Thomas must have worked at every single position possible in the theater at one time or another and vowed to keep the theater running. In 1989, the duo retired from the theater business, and ownership of the theater was then turned over to the Lake Country Playhouse. It would be their very first permanent home to perform in. Now, the folks at the Playhouse decided to keep the tradition alive by continuing to show movies in the theater, making the Select the oldest continuously operating movie theater in Texas. When you walk up to the window today and you purchase your ticket for a brand new major motion picture, a timeless classic, or for one of the many productions by the Lake Country Playhouse, take a real close look at that machine dispensing your ticket. The theater still uses the original ticket machine it has used from the very beginning of the theater's opening. see what I'm looking at.
Your feet are in my shot.